Have you ever felt confined by the calendar or your clock, or wondered why we are still living off of a structure that was built in the 1500s by Pope Gregory, and splitting up our days into 8 hours of work, 8 hours of recreation, 8 hours of sleep? If you have ever wondered anything about the calendar and wanting to find ways to reorient to natural time, this video is for you. My name is Anjani Siegrist. I've been an astrologer since 2014, and I also work in the healing arts for over 23 years now. My intention in what I hope that you're going to receive from this video are some very practical steps that you can take away today and implement them into your life to reorient to natural time. The first thing I'm going to start off with here is the way that I did this process for myself was to start by getting off the alarm clock, because you're starting your day in a way that is extremely unnatural, shaking you out of your dream world and into this hurried, okay, where am I? What time is it? I need to go somewhere. And it's very disturbing to your nervous system. So to get off the alarm clock, the first thing you need to do is start planning to wake up earlier. Why do you want to wake up earlier? Well, because you want to have that quiet time to yourself so you can prepare for your day, whether that is waking up. And if you've been on my channel for a little while, I'm going to say it again. You've heard it before. Wake up, roll over, and have your dream journal ready, and you just start writing. If you don't remember the dream, you start writing what it is that you're feeling, what you're sensing, and hope with the intention that the dream will start to come. Then you have time to reorient to the fact that you are awake again and go slow. So getting off the alarm clock is going to take some time, especially if you have to be somewhere. Then you usually wake up at 6 a.m. You're going to start going to bed a little bit earlier so you have space to play with, to train your body to wake up by itself. And I know if you're living on the alarm clock, this might sound completely out of reach, but what you can do is start to set the alarm clock, but plan to wake up an hour before the alarm clock is set to go off. This will give you some space to start practicing waking up and telling your body before bed that you have to wake up at 5 instead of at 6. You know, if you have a flight, then you know you will usually wake up when you have something planned. You've told yourself you need to wake up at that time. So that's the first thing you're going to do, get off the alarm clock. The second thing you're going to do is switch to a moon calendar instead of a solar calendar. The solar calendar would be fine if it actually, like, you flipped the page when the sun moved into a new sign, but that's not the case. I haven't seen a calendar like that. If you do have access, or you know of a calendar that you flip the page when the sun moves into another sign, that would be a wonderful way to reorient to natural time. The way that I did it was I switched over to a moon calendar. You can actually find a moon calendar that you will flip the page when it's the new moon. So part of doing that process is going to involve going out and looking at the moon with your eyes, because when you look at the moon, you're receiving the light and you're receiving information, and you're also able to look at the shape of the moon and understand where we are in the moon cycle. This, I feel, second to getting off the alarm clock, because that really is the first step. Secondarily, switching over to paying attention to what phase the moon is in. So when it's a new moon, it's completely dark. You don't see a moon. This is the same in our physical bodies for women when we're bleeding. It's the bleeding phase. So we know that during that time, everything from the previous cycle is finished. It's over. We're letting that go. And there is a grief process that happens. There's some contractions that happen. There's some process of release that's happening during that dark phase. As soon as we start to see that first crescent, and I like to do this with my hand, it's a teaching tool that I use for the kids, for everybody, for myself also when I go outside. And by now it's so ingrained in me that when I see that with my right hand, the crescent moon shape, I know that this is the beginning. And we're going to have about 7 days from new until we get through this crescent growing larger and larger until we reach the first quarter moon. That's going to be about 7 days. The first quarter moon is when the moon, it looks like it's just sliced perfectly right down the middle. That first 7 days, we know we've sat in our release phase of the new moon. We're releasing everything from the previous cycle. We're starting over. And now this first 7 days, we've set the intention somewhere around the time we visibly see that first crescent. And then we move forward, building up, taking action, moving toward those first days of taking action on our intention. From the next 7 days, now we're getting into reaching from what's known in our physical bodies as the follicular phase into an ovulatory phase. Ovulation, full moon. They go together. This is the peak part of the cycle where now we have fully reached the climax. This is the celebration time. This is where in the hero's journey, the whatever the adventure was, we've gotten there. And then the next 7 days is going to be going from the fullness going back into a waning. So in that waning phase, we start to, okay, we've reached the climax. Now we see, oh, I need to we're kind of refining, we're shifting, we're cutting things down, we're taking things away in the yard. It's pruning time. We're pruning the trees in the yard and starting to get back into the 0 point again. So that connection with the moon has been a constant connection that we have always had, that we forgot, but it is a very, very wonderful tool for getting back connected with natural time. If you're not a lunar person, you're not into it, I still recommend it, especially for people who don't have that cycle happening inside their physical bodies, because it's an important cycle to tune into. It's very helpful in any creation process that you're in, because those 4 quadrants of time are very helpful to work with, like the end of the first thing, the beginning of the new thing, the growth of the new thing, and then reaching the fullness of that project, and then starting to disseminate and waning, where in the cutting off, it's also the giveaway, dissemination. We're also sharing what we've learned from the journey, giving that away. It's not just trimming and throwing things away or releasing. It is also the sharing portion of our cycle. And if you're not into lunar things, you can definitely, like I mentioned a minute ago, work with the solar cycle, because did I tell you that before the Gregorian calendar was put into place, the British New Year actually started on the 25th of March, which is very close to spring equinox. So there is an understanding of where the sun is in the tropical zodiac. It's very consistent. That actually is pretty consistent with our calendar, or is it just me? I don't know. Because every time it's around the 21st, 22nd of those equinox and solstice points, the sun does move into the next sign when I'm looking at my calendar. So there is a consistency with that. And it would be more beneficial to focus on that, the sun moving into the new sign. Okay, so now we've got getting off the alarm clock and we have switching to a moon calendar. The third thing is pay attention to the solstice and the equinoxes for keeping track of time. And I'm going to mesh number 3 and number 4 together, because number 4 being the big thing for me, taking back winter. This is really so critical. I cannot tell you how many times I've been in a circle of people who are calling in the 4 directions, who've learned that technique, the ritualistic calling in of the directions, and get to winter and completely, it's this big, elaborate, beautiful calling in of the east. Everybody loves the east with the sun rising and the new beginnings, and then going into the south with the fertility and creative, fluid, emotional currency, and then getting to the west where we have our merging of me with we, where we're getting into relationships and we are having this experience of community. So nice, elaborately drawn out calling in of those directions, and then getting to the north and turning to that direction and just saying, and this is the end. The north direction, just the end, has been completely underutilized. And I think it's on purpose that we do not have a connection with the north. This goes so deep. I'm going to keep it to the topic, and then I might get a little bit deeper into that missing piece that we are completely missing from our calendar. Just first, let's say this, okay? When our year happens, we get to winter solstice. That's going to be 22 of December. And we also are going to have Christmas shortly after that. And then we're going to have New Year's Eve, and then we're going to have New Year's. And then everybody starts setting their New Year's intention. This is similar to how I noticed that in the community where I live, they're like, oh, we're having a new moon ceremony. And it's like on the new moon, we're going to set our intentions together. And I'm always thinking, like, that's not how it goes. Like, we need to have, unless there's a new moon ceremony where we're grieving and crying and cramping and bleeding together and dying to the things that we're not, it's like think about the egg being released from the body, and say if the woman was hoping to have a pregnancy in that cycle and menstruation starts, there's a grief of that, all that process, all that I've been going through to create life it didn't take, and then there's blood now, and it hurts on all levels. And of course, some people are celebrating when that process happens because they weren't wanting to keep that egg. They were, there's also all sorts of different emotions can happen, but pretty much consistently across the board, we have lowered energy. We're more introspective. We're more reflective. There is a huge thing happening in our body, and we need that time to process the grief, the loss, what didn't take. Okay, we take away all of that physiological things. what didn't work from what I tried in the last cycle. I really wanted to put this project out and nobody signed up for it. And so there's like a grief around the new moon. It's not the time to start setting new intentions. Just like that, when we get to winter, it is not the time to set your New Year's resolutions. You are destined to fail if you set a New Year's resolution when the actual energy of winter. Let's talk about this, okay? North is our ancestors. It is, okay, when we're in the West, it's about the dead, and we have Day of the Dead, and we celebrate sun merging with earth is representative of death. It's in ancient Egyptian teachings, I've heard it be called as westing. Westing is a word for dying. The sun dies when it sinks down into the ocean and darkness wins. It's the end of the day, beginning of night, as soon as that sun goes down on the west. And then that we start to prepare, we start to get closer to death. We start to understand and connect more with the darkness because it's dark sooner. And that we call this the veils are thinning. We celebrate the dead. But when we get to the north, we really go into the traditions of our ancestors, the connection that we have with our ancestors, and in our physical body, our bones, our genetic memories, the shape that our bodies take is our ancestors living through us. And whether we like it or not, we were made, cut from a certain cloth, a certain group of people, a certain place on the earth. There's a certain land that our DNA came from. And one of my teachers, Sergio Magana, said that it was like the Creator had a dream for us, and that we are a living part of a legacy. And it's like we're born coming here to do something. And now we don't have to necessarily do it. And I remember him giving a story about he wanted to be a movie star, but he was born as a healer, and he has all these wisdom teachings about healing. And for him to be able to find a way to honor his tradition and the legacy of what he is, while also exploring that soul wish, that spirit wish that he has of being in that movie star kind of lifestyle. Like that, we also have something that is our legacy, that we are a legacy carrier. We carry some wisdom that we are here to bring forth. And we can do anything. We can do many things. I'm not going to say anything. We can do many things, but we are built for something. And in the direction of north, we connect in with what that thing is. Who are you? What are you? Where are your people from? And what wisdom are you carrying? If you don't go down into winter, and I'm saying that this way because the seeds are down there. They're down below the surface. Maybe there's snow on top or some layer of frosty coldness. The seeds are underground and they're holding their energy. And the more concentrated that energy gets, that deeper connection that we get with the underground, with the power below the surface, the more that we sink into that, not setting any intentions or not doing, it's not time for that. It's time to go in, to connect with our ancestors, connect with our body, our bones, our family. In India, during rainy season, you literally couldn't go out. So that was when we would study the sacred text. We'd be with our family, sing songs in India and also other places. Like there's songs that belong to that land and that community that are carried forth, that hold wisdom of many, many generations of people who sat together singing those songs. It is very connected to the land. If we do not do that, what are we doing in the spring equinox? What are we doing bursting forth with the rising sun if we haven't really gone underground and cooked ourselves in the wisdom of our ancestors and the wisdom of our own bones and the land that we're on, the land that we're from? If you know that and you have a connection with that, if you don't, you are on land. And there is a way to connect with that land. I'll mention a few things that I have done in this space that I live in. Do I want to share that? Ways of connecting myself, my body, hair, fingernail clippings. There are certain permaculture techniques that I use, fluids from my body to put it into the soil. So not only am I feeding the soil with vital minerals that the soil needs, it is this continuous reciprocity between me and the land. And it's a very deep, intimate connection that over years of doing that on this land that I live with, in, I can understand why people would fight for land. Like my child's placenta is planted in the soil here. My hair, my nails, my blood, it's in the soil. We are connected. So without winter, and we're missing that whole process. And then here comes the actual new year, which is when the sun reaches that 21, 22 of April. That's going to be 0 degrees of Aries. That is when the sun reaches the tropical sign of Aries, and this is spring. And this is when we spring forth. So we need to have winter to fully do winter, not trying to go to the gym and whatever the ideal things that we think we wanted to manifest, or the resolutions or whatever, which those are often based off of things that aren't even really true to us. It's like culturally appropriate to want to get more in shape or to make more money or to be more productive or to, I don't know, whatever the other kind of things that we might say when we haven't actually went deep into, and I mean go there and stay there for winter. So take back winter. That's number 4. Okay, so number 3 was to pay attention to the solstices and the equinoxes. Now that is because, well, now that we've taken back winter, now when it's spring, we're actually springing forth with some real deep knowledge and wisdom that we are ready to spring. We've been underground and that buildup is happening, that we've been under there. Now we're ready to spring forth. Once we get, that is really the time to set that vision board. I make my vision board in the shape of a wheel, and it goes along with the seasons, and I make it kind of like a zodiac, like a astrology chart. So I know that on the eastern horizon, which is the rising, this is what I'm rising into. And then I put it around the wheel. So in summer, these are the things that I hope to be working on by the time we get to summer. And then when we get to the autumnal equinox, I'll have little images for all of those different equinoxes and solstice points. So that is the main orientation. I'm looking at it as these 4 quadrants of time, going by the seasons. And then every month I'm going by the moon. It's the new moon. This is when I'm finishing up the previous cycle and things that I was working on, projects I was working on. I'm being in the emptiness again. I'm going through that whole cycle of that 4 sections of 7-day periods, about 7 days. And that's how I've done it. And I want to show you, did I tell you everything? The moon and the solstices. I want to share this resource that was helpful. After I went to moon calendars, I got into these, and I didn't use this one this year because I'm not really sure why I didn't. Usually I would have this in my room somewhere very highly visible where I could see it. And it's kind of not for a beginner because it takes a little while to get used to what all the little things are. She's got, no, never mind. She doesn't have. I thought it had a little compass, but it doesn't. But it's pretty self-explanatory. It's written on there. You might like it. I loved it for the first few years I was using it. I think it's called Spiral. Gosh, I hope she has her name on here. Julie Wilder. And it's called Spiral Spectrum. You might use something like that if you can't find a moon calendar. And the thing that I am doing now is I am very oriented to natural time. That is my calendar. And I still have clients who hire me for astrology readings, who hire me for massage, who hire me for herbal consultations. So I need to know what time it is in their time zone. And that's easy with Zoom because you can set the appointments and there's all these online ways of making sure that we can meet up at a certain time and place. That is very wonderful for our relationships to keep them on time. I appreciate that. And I love Magic of I. I think this is going to be my 3rd year using these planners. If you are an astrology enthusiast, I'm not getting paid for this. This is not a little marketing thing. I want to show you that there's everything in here. There's everything related to astrology. The next thing I'm going to share, I think I'm going to do a part 2 of this video and get more into the different cycles because Sun has a 1 year. Venus has 8 years. So we can time our life like setting goals for the future by using the planets. And that is a very wonderful, powerful way of also orienting to time. If you're somebody who likes to set long-term goals, looking at those longer cycles, and you can also go back in history through your own personal life and look back in chunks of 8, for instance, if you want to be looking at your resources, money, finances, relationships, marriages, those long-term relationships, you can look back in 8-year chunks and see what was happening. And there's usually a trend that you can follow. So the last thing I'll mention is something called the Chaldean order. If you are not aware of that, it is such a beautiful, really fun way of paying attention to time. So basically the 7 days, as you might have noticed, Moon Day, Monday, Tuesday is Mars Day, Wednesday, Mercury Day, Thursday, Thor's Day, Jupiter Day, Friday, Freya, Venus Day, Saturn Day, Saturday, Sunday, Sunday. So all of the 7 days are actually named after a planet. Sunday, the first hour of the day, the first hour being when the sun came up, that's the first hour of daytime, is going to be the sun's hour on Sunday. And then they're going to go through all of the planets. And then when you get to Tuesday, at sunrise, the first hour lands on Mars Day, Tuesday. And then it goes through all the planets again. Every hour is a different planetary hour. And then when you get to Wednesday, the first hour of that day is going to be Mercury's day. And likewise, it goes through the entire thing. And it is so magical the way that that order actually fits and takes place perfectly. I do use that if I'm going to be doing a magical working. I was born during Venus's hour on Jupiter's day. I have a strong affinity with Venus. So if I'm going to be doing some work for resource management, my sensual pleasures, relationship kind of things, I will do it during Venus's hour on Venus's day. So there's lots of fun ways to work with this. And I will do a part 2 to get more in depth in talking about the longer cycles of the other planets and how we can use those. Because today in this video, all I've talked about was the sun, the moon, and the earth, which that's all you really need to reorient yourself to natural time. Thank you so much for watching the video. I look forward to connecting with you again soon.